And then I guess from there, it kind of like started into a journey of like mining on a laptop in class. I think I was in like some algebra class for my computer science studies. And the professor turned and looked at me and was like, "Why is your laptop making so much noise during this lecture?"
That's funny.
And I was like, "I'm mining Bitcoin."
Welcome to Sat Chats, the Bitcoin podcast where we chat about sats. Yes, dude. Feels like it's been a little while since we've had a show.
Yeah, we're back, baby.
Let's see here. Sats are the smallest part of a Bitcoin, the same way pennies are the smallest part of a dollar. With Sat Chats, we are building the world's biggest Bitcoin welcome center to serve as your gateway to generational wealth. So if you're brand new to Bitcoin, we want to chat about sats with you. Head to the newly redesigned satchats.com to grab your slot in the studio today. There's still only one button on there. Just click it. I'll be your host, Stuart Bitcoin Maxi, who wears prescription sunglasses to protect you and your loved ones from my Bitcoin laser eyes.
And I'm your co-host, Chris, founder and CEO of Ithaca Hummus, resident Bitcoin smash buyer. We're giving away 10 million sats.
Boom!
All right. I'm not sure if you've heard that or not. All you got to do is go to our YouTube channel, smash the subscribe button.
So we're also on the road to number 99, Kristen, my wife, which is fast approaching. We've got number 74 here in the studio. So that's 25 episodes away. With Spencer here in the studio today, we are officially halfway through our 50 episode march toward my wife. Today in the studio, we have got my good buddy Spencer. So we're going to be getting Spencer's Bitcoin story here today, and it's going to be an absolute banger. Before we do the Bitcoin story and kind of your pitch for Bitcoin, maybe just help our Satillionaires get to know you a little bit first.
Yeah. I'm Spencer, and I guess I came into Bitcoin when I was studying computer science at university. I was actually also studying political science as well. And that's where I first heard about Bitcoin, was in my political science class, because we were studying national security studies, things like that. And the topic of WikiLeaks came up. And this was like 2010, 2011. WikiLeaks was a new thing. And we essentially just were covering all of that news, and it came up that WikiLeaks had been kicked off of the MasterCard and Visa and also the other ACH Swift money networks being banned to accept donations. So at that point, it was essentially they had turned to Bitcoin and to fund their efforts of whistleblowing and things like that. So I found out about it then. I was like, whoa, what is this money? How are these people kind of just saying, all right, nice try shutting us down, but we are kind of ungovernable and we kind of can freely move using this new cryptography money. So I don't know if I considered it money at that point, but that was the first kind of prick of a blockchain technology to me, kind of being a freedom money, if you will. So yeah, found it there in college. And as any broke college kid, you're like, well, how do I make money? To fund the, restaurants, eating out, or whatever else you do in college. And I was like, you can mine this stuff. So I fired up the old laptops and kind of dove into it. We had Bitcoin talk back then. So you kind of just had to do a deep dive on these forums and stuff and just get in there with a bunch of other nerds. And basically you had to kind of gather an understanding of what a wallet was, how to generate, basically they had like a 64 character, it wasn't like seed phrases now. And it was like alphanumeric code that would be like your private key. And I'm pretty sure I like posted my private key out on the forum chat and be like, hey, send me Bitcoin. And people were like, no, you have to generate an address, like a receiving address from your private key. And here's how you do that. So like, there's a bunch of just like little steps, initially like learning of, how to transact with Bitcoin. There was an exchange called Mt. Gox back then, but, I don't think I even used that. Maybe, yeah. So that's kind of the opener of like the genesis of Bitcoin, for me.
I like that. And we'll unpack your Bitcoin story as part of this show. But we want to hear from you. If you needed to orange pill someone out there in the audience, how would you do that?
Yeah. I think we came up with this phrase at Bitcoin Pizza Day recently, where you and I were chatting. We were like, oh, the Bitcoin story, I guess for me, was about just becoming ungovernable. With the government printing money and devaluing your dollar every day, it was kind of like a wake-up call in that sense of like, okay, so the government is actively controlling this money supply and inflationary measures and things like that. And I'm daily getting poorer by holding this U.S. government asset. So I need to have some other freedom money where I can securely store my wealth. And that's part of being ungovernable is the government cannot devalue your asset. So similar to holding like physical gold or something like that, Bitcoin has the portability and extra security, where you can kind of take it anywhere. Can be kidnapped and taken off to a foreign country. And if you know your 12-word seed phrase, you can wake up and spin up your wallet. It is nuts.
Well, I mean, if you could compare, so imagine that I'm someone that has no Bitcoin and I operate in fiat world. And one of my hesitations is, okay, I understand that you're telling me Bitcoin is peer-to-peer digital cash, but I have no idea how to like take those first few steps into a Bitcoin standard. What would you advise me to do maybe as my first step or two?
I do feel like the on and off ramps have gotten a lot better these days. So I'd probably recommend something like a Venmo or a Cash App or something like that to, see what it's like to exchange a US dollar for Bitcoin and kind of get started with your first small amount of sats. And then kind of figure out, okay, now that I've got these in a wallet, does it make sense for me to hold these coins? There's a lot of different custody methods, as you know. Does it make sense to hold these on an exchange? Does it make sense for me to hold them, in my own cold hardware wallet or some other service like Unchained or Anchor Watch or Casa, something like that? Everybody's journey is a little bit different from that perspective, but I'd say that first step is, using some sort of service like Coinbase, Cash App, Strike, any of those to kind of get those first sats. Maybe even just hold them for a while, kind of see what happens, and just taking a step towards it every day. A lot of people do the DCA thing. I think you saw on the news or Reddit recently where a guy was just DCAing like $20 a day for like 8 years. Multi-millionaire now.
Yeah. What? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So he was buying $20 a day for the past 8 some odd years.
Yeah.
And now he's a multi-millionaire.
Yeah. So just taking like a little step like each day towards that Bitcoin journey and just saving. You hear of a lot of people just DCAing like in their stock or their brokerage accounts, kind of this similar concept.
Yeah. So let's focus on your Bitcoin story now, right? Yeah. So we've talked about how one of the most powerful ways that you could orange pill a pre-coiner would be to let them know that with Bitcoin, you can become ungovernable. You can become free. You can become capable. You can go anywhere in the world and have your money right there with you, right? And it's not something that the government can debase by making more of it. But if I can take you back to before university, you know, were you a freshman or a sophomore when you heard about it in your political science class, or were you junior, senior? How old were you when you first heard about Bitcoin?
Yeah. It was like junior year. So it was like 2011.
Okay.
2010, 2011.
Did you have, I mean, you know, we typically start with like, what was it like before Bitcoin? But since you found it so early, you know, did you have any real problems or struggles with money or finances or any of that before you found Bitcoin, you know?
Not really. I had always kind of been technical growing up, and that's kind of what led me towards computer science. You know, I was always like the help desk kid. But I guess I could give a lot of credit to my grandmother for leading me down the technical rabbit hole, because she showed me Napster and like all these things, like early days of just like distributed, I guess, data that, you know, might not be, you know, super kosher, I guess, with government or something like that, you know, different data sharing things. So yeah, she was like, here's how you rip a DVD. Here's how you rip or record a show and, you know, rip it to a DVD or something like that. So it kind of started there. And then I guess you kind of go down the rabbit hole of that with Tor and a bunch of other BitTorrent stuff.
So back in the day, grandma was a pirate.
Yeah.
Yes, dude. What's so funny is the guest just before you, number 73, Allie, also talked about, you know, torrenting movies and music and shows back in the day, and like being the neighborhood guy that would burn it all to a DVD for you.
Yeah.
And that took me way back, man. Mm-hmm. So grandma, that's so funny. It was your grandma she was like a tech person.
Yeah.
Wow. And she introduced you to this world of basically peer-to-peer. It's peer-to-peer file sharing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's not that far
from Bitcoin,
from peer-to-peer money.
Yeah. Peer-to-peer
file sharing. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is I feel like almost everyone of our generation understands peer-to-peer file sharing. We all know the Pirate Bay. We all know Napster, all that stuff. You know, taking the black Sharpie to like, and I was telling Allie, like, when you're like drive ejects and you're like, yeah, boy, this thing's dying. You're like, you know.
But the Pirate Bay and things like that, a lot of that is like Swedish, like hackers and Nordic stuff. And, you know, my grandma, she's Icelandic, and, you know, it's kind of maybe just part of the culture of like a freedom culture of like, we should be able to share these things. And
did she live in Iceland? Were you visiting her there, or had she moved to America?
No, she had been in America, but her grandfather was an Icelandic priest who planted churches in Iceland.
So, oh, wow. Yeah. So your Icelandic grandma here in America showed you how to jump onto the web and get whatever you wanted off of these peer-to-peer sharing networks. And when you made it to university, where'd you go to school?
NC State. Okay. Here in Raleigh. Yep.
So when you made it to university and got to be a junior, the political science class was the one that was pointing out the use case for Bitcoin when it comes to WikiLeaks.
Yep.
And you said that was like the first prick for you in terms of your mental landscape. You know, what can you remember thinking about Bitcoin when you were first introduced to it through that class?
Yeah. There was a way to, I guess, maybe make money, like, you know, make $50, you know, to pay bill or, you know, top up my meal card or something like that. And then I guess from there, it kind of like started into a journey of like mining on a laptop in class. I think I was in like some algebra class for my computer science studies. And the professor kind of turned and looked at me and was like, why is your laptop making so much noise during this lecture?
That's funny.
And I was like, I'm mining Bitcoin. She's like, what? Can you like turn it down some or something like that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I told her I was like mining Bitcoin during the middle of lecture, because everybody had their laptops out during class, you know, take notes or do whatever, do their assignments. But yeah, so getting called out in your college math class.
Was your laptop just like?
Exactly.
I would have.
It's one of those first like.
I would have been afraid that if she knew that, she would try to stop me, and I wouldn't have wanted that. So I would have lied to her.
Right.
So good for you
Bitcoin
for
was
being
so
honest.
new at the time.
Yeah.
It was kind of like people didn't really know.
So you just said that you were topping off your meal card. You're kind of getting $20 here and there.
Yeah.
How were you doing that? How were you going from a computer and turning that into cash at the very beginning?
So there was this local 2600 meetup. It's like a hacker collective. They would meet at the Royal Bean, which is over near like Lucky Tree Coffee near like Meredith College.
Okay.
They would meet in there, and there were a bunch of other cyberpunks and hackers. So you could like sell Bitcoin.
What's 2600 mean?
It is the hertz frequency of the Captain Crunch whistle, where you can make long distance calls on the telephone networks.
What?
I'm sorry, what?
That's cool.
Like you could hack into the long
The phone
distance
line, yeah.
So yeah, because I guess during our lifetime there was a difference between a local call and a long distance call, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And so you're saying you could get the Captain Crunch whistle out of the cereal box and then blow it into the phone?
Yeah. And it would be the right hertz tone.
This is making me so. What do you think? Have you heard the claim that the CIA actually invented Bitcoin?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I mean, who was it that Gavin, I think one of the early Bitcoin developers, did a presentation, and then Satoshi disappeared, right?
Gavin Newsom did a presentation on what?
On Bitcoin at the CIA.
Wait, Gavin Newsom?
Gavin.
No, Andreessen? Maybe?
Gavin Andreessen, something like that? Yeah, he went to the CIA to present on Bitcoin, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then shortly thereafter, Satoshi disappeared.
He went there before Satoshi disappeared or after Satoshi disappeared?
He made an announcement on Bitcoin Talk saying, hey, I'm going to go do this presentation at the CIA and tell them about Bitcoin. And shortly thereafter, Satoshi disappeared forever.
There's been no communication from Satoshi since.
But are you trying to say that you think that means he was at the CIA and they're like, dang, dude, it's gotten all the way back to me? Or if he's like, yo, y'all starting to mess with the federal government, I'm out of here. You ain't never going to hear from me again.
Well, it could be.
Is that a case for or against him being part of the CIA?
I don't know. Cypherpunks have their different reasons. I mean, it's kind of like we've got this technology has kind of got the virgin birth almost, like the creator's gone, disappeared. Don't know if it was a he or a she or a group,
And would it even matter if that person reappeared today, or has Bitcoin gotten past their ability to influence it?
I think it's gotten past, yeah.
Let's go.
It doesn't matter.
Let's go.
If the CIA created it,
yeah,
it's too big now. Yeah. It's too big to change.
Bitcoin's too big to fail. Woo! Yeah, we got our own 2008 in here, y'all. Let's go.
Do you remember how sickening it felt? I don't know. For me, the first time I heard the term too big to fail and they were talking about banks, it was nauseating. It's like, what do you mean?
That made me so angry.
Sick.
Yeah, I hated that so badly.
But to hear it under the context of Bitcoin is just as emotional in the opposite direction. It's amazing.
Dude, I love it. Yeah, because it's peer to peer.
Yeah,
it's the Napster of money. It's the Pirate Bay of money. For me, Bitcoin is the Captain Crunch whistle of the financial system. You know what I mean? Where you're hacking into it. You know? Yeah. I just love somebody being like picking up the phone and be like, woo, and then like
funny.
And then I guess typing in the punching in the number. That is so funny.
So great.
Do you feel like that kind of hacker mentality kind of fueled some of your early interest in Bitcoin because it was like just a technological thing to figure out?
Counterculture tech.
Yeah, I guess it was the early thing of just being curious. Like, can you break into stuff? Can you, like, I would get like a bunch of government laptops from like a government surplus, and they would be locked down, and I would be like, all right, I know I can solder this board to like trick the BIOS to like be able to use these laptops. And so we would just have like a dorm room full of these government laptops that they had just like thrown away. And so it was kind of just curiosity, just being curious as to like, what are the government secrets? And that kind of leads you down to like WikiLeaks and other whistleblowers kind of blowing the whistle on different stuff that the government's doing. So kind of just that curiosity of like, I don't know. I've always kind of been the, I don't know, person that might have not always had like the best, I guess, social or emotional intelligence to like not ask some questions. Like it could be like socially awkward. Like I would be like, so where did you get that exactly? You know, and they would be like, no, can't tell you, or something like that. So
you definitely, when we were working together at Atlantic BT, like you felt a little aloof, like a little inaccessible, but also like there was a look in your eye like you knew something that we didn't know. And I was like, what does this guy know that I don't know? And I didn't put it together at the time that it was Bitcoin. I just thought that just kind of added to your technological mythos, you know, as a developer, someone writing code for the company, you got Bitcoin, like it just kind of all wrapped into like, I wonder what he knows that I don't know.
Well, I mean, Bitcoin among many, 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 many other things, I'm sure.
Hey, dude, this guy has gone places, man. I feel like you've gone places fearlessly on the internet that Chris and I will never see.
The
Never
Captain
see.
Crunch whistle, like it sounds unbelievable. But your brain and your experience is probably full of things like that. That I would just never. I mean, I would hear that and be like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
but it's true. And you, I mean,
so go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah. So 2010, right?
Yep.
It's kind of when you. So you've got 13 years on me in terms of being involved in Bitcoin. I'm class of 2024, same as Stuart.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the energy, we feel, to kind of like pick up the torch and try to continue doing the work that I'm sure you've been trying to do for the last decade plus, which is going out and evangelizing and spreading the word, trying to orange pill people. So you've been doing that for a long time, I'm sure. Right? Trying to
evangelizing it? Not really.
Well, so you've been talking to people about Bitcoin who don't know anything about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So what are some of the one or two most common objections that you've experienced in those conversations?
Objections. I think a lot of people, maybe with the mining aspect of it, they're like, you can kind of just print this money. Like, is it not similar to what the Fed is doing? So there's a lot of like people's misunderstanding of mining initially and what it's doing and the proof of work that has to be done in order to get Bitcoin. I think a lot of people are just kind of like afraid of the technology and digital aspect of it being hacked as well. So I think that's one of the things. And then there's also folks that are being like, you know, the news and the media has always reported this as something that's been drug dealers and criminals and things like that. Kind of been a way for them to transact, and I don't want to be a part of like that dirty money, you know?
Yeah.
But to them, I just say like the US dollar is way worse in that regard, with the drug trade and everything like that, all the challenges with that, I guess.
People are scared of it. I think it's human nature. When you don't understand something, we like to understand things, or we at least like to feel like we understand things, whether we do or not. And that's a big hurdle for people too, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are like, so when you mine Bitcoin, the reward is Bitcoin. Like it just kind of feels like it feels like a useless token cycle, you know, where you're just printing thingamabobs, and and it's just kind of. I think a lot of people come at it like, oh, you guys just think this has value. That's why it has value. It's like you're just choosing to believe, and that's not really the case.
Mm-hmm.
But if we focus on mining for a second, you kind of went on a whole mining journey there, at least for a stretch. So, your first mining experience was at university, basically drowning out the professor. Dude, I remember too, when I went to Chapel Hill, we all got a laptop, and like the laptop was like this thick, man. And they gave you a backpack that had like a laptop slot. And I was like, dude, this laptop's so small. It's like so thin and amazing. You know what I mean? And like, really, it's actually like a 10-pound weight. So
yeah, we had MacBook Pros, I think back then. It was like the first stainless steel model, and it had a GPU in it, like a small GPU, but it's kind of like where it started there for me.
You were mining on that old MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
So where did you go next from there? First of all, were you in a pool of miners? Were you solo mining? You see the hash rate over here is however much now. I mean, was it in 2010? It must have been. Could you just mine with just your own laptop and win?
Solo, not as likely. But they did have pools back then too. So I was just experimenting. I would be like, all right, let's try this pool. Let's try this pool. Let's try this pool. And I was just constantly tinkering. And it wasn't always running either. Like, turn the laptop on and off, going to and from class or leave it at home. Might not always turn it on at home. Bitcoin was 10 cents at the time. Like, it's like, okay, is all this time and effort really worth like mining it right now?
Knowing what you know now, would you have kept that laptop on around the clock and just run that sucker into the ground?
Sure, yeah.
You would just be like, laptop, you're gonna die mining Bitcoin. I'm gonna redline you, and you're gonna mine Bitcoin until you literally die and seize up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So where'd you go from that MacBook Pro? Did you put all these government laptops to use, or that was a different?
That was just like a different venture.
Okay.
But no, I would say I didn't get back into mining maybe until 2017 or so. And I was building in GPU rigs. I had met somebody in Raleigh, and he was a dentist who had basically sold his dental practice for Bitcoin. So like a whole practice.
Wow, he got a ton of it.
Yeah. And essentially he was like, I'm doing this mining thing and we're building these GPU rigs. There's a local guy, JP Barrick, who was basically helping Jason Williams and Anthony Pompliano build their mine out at PRTI, which is like a little bit outside of Raleigh, where they take the tires and recycle them. So we got some like enclosures from him, and we started building GPU rigs and things like that. I think that was about around the time where I was working at ABT as well, on that mining journey.
Wow. Okay. So they were basically, I guess, burning tires, and you all were taking the energy?
So I wasn't using anything in that mine. I mean, we started small scale, like in our apartments, in the city. We're like, turn this thing on. I'm printing money. That's awesome. Because Bitcoin was just starting to have like these crazy parabolic pumps. And so.
Did that make your apartment hot and loud?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And was it very energy intensive, or did your utility bill just kind of go up a little bit?
Very energy intensive. I mean, power bill was like $1,000 a month.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And what was the exchange rate of Bitcoin at this time? Was it between 3 and 20K if it was 2017, or was it still in like the hundreds of dollars?
No, it was in the thousands of dollars. I think we had that big run up to 20K, and I don't even remember because we've had so many different cycles. But I think that I guess when we were building those, we essentially would just take like all the GPUs and built the rigs, and then we like eventually sold all the GPUs off for like a profit. Used them to mine for like a year. GPUs went crazy. Video gamers are all pissed off, the miners, about the GPUs.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Because they were just sucking all the supply out of the market.
Yeah.
And then the price went up.
So you could sell back the used GPUs to the market. And so once I did that, I got into the ASIC game, which is like different. The ASIC machines were like $3,500 a machine.
Okay.
And you had to buy them out of a trunk in the back of a car in Miami with cash.
What?
So you had to bring like 30, 50 grand worth of cash if you want to pick up a batch of miners. And because you couldn't get these things like shipped to you from Bitmain in China, because once Bitmain would open their order books online, it would be like, I don't know, like 2 a.m. here, and you had to like try to get in the website to try to get an order, and it was very rare that you could actually complete an order on the Bitmain website.
Spencer pulled up Bitmain at 2 a.m. and then he blew the Captain Crunch whistle, and he's like trying to see if that'll help him out. You know what I mean? He's like, how do I hack into this Bitmain website, dude? How do I hit the right frequency? So people would snatch it up and then resell it.
Yeah, they would snatch them and resell them. So, you know, we had to buy them in person.
What do you think about the mining game today? Is it something that makes sense to get into? Or is it kind of all been, you know, centralized, if you will, by a handful of major players?
There are some major players that have figured out, I guess, how to depreciate the assets and play like fiat games. You have to play, I guess, some aspect of that, like from a tax and cost and loss, profit loss perspective, I guess. They probably do some things like that. And they probably have special power agreements to where they either have free power, some sort of connection to Joe at a oil and gas company, where they get a stranded flare, or they're in Iceland and they can use geothermal,
Yes,
hydroelectric. I saw the Genesis mine there when I was in Iceland traveling.
The what?
There's a large Bitcoin mine in Iceland called the Genesis mine. It's like kind of been the center of a lot of like organized crime rings in Iceland. They would like steal miners from the mine and all this kind of crazy stuff. But the people in Iceland have been mining Bitcoin using all these geothermal energy sources for a long time as well. So
we need to do Sat Chats Iceland.
If I had the capital to invest, would you recommend that if I had enough capital to invest in setting up one of these like serious mines,
Let's say 2.6 million.
In somewhere like Bhutan or Iceland or somewhere where energy is cheap,
Paraguay.
Would you recommend that I do that or just buy Bitcoin with that money?
Well, if you just buy Bitcoin, it's not going to be some staff in Bhutan, you know, up your hiney all the time.
There's no operation. There's no operating.
You would have to deal with the headache of operations, maintaining and acquiring the assets, buying and selling. And so it would be an actively managed thing. Whereas if you just buy Bitcoin, you can just, it's not asking you for annual property taxes. It's not asking you for, you know, a power bill or to, you know, fix the fridge or, you know, all the expenses that come with operating a company or being a landlord. So,
yeah, I've been asked that question, and that's generally my answer is that, yes, there's a margin opportunity there between I may be able to mine Bitcoin for half of the current exchange rate, but then I have to take out all my operating costs and the risk of being an operator.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, if there's 10% margin left,
you might have a lot more gray hairs on your head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the mining that you were doing at Atlantic BT, when you were working with me, you were also basically, I guess the impression I get from you is that you kind of like were pushing into this bold, undiscovered space. I mean, I feel like I grew up on traditional rails, thinking traditional things and taking traditional actions. Like, just like the board game, life, where it's like, okay, here's your little car, and now you can pick. Are you going to be an airline stewardess? Are you going to be a basketball player? Are you going to be an attorney or a teacher? I feel like you just you blew the Captain Crunch whistle on life and was like, I'm just going to hack into this completely new area, take $35,000 to $50,000 worth of cash to a person in Miami. I mean, how do you even verify that ASIC works before handing over the cash? Did you plug it in? Were they like, you don't even get to check because I got a gun? Like,
Yeah.
What was that whole exchange like for you?
I mean, they were all, it was like, these are sealed and, cash, buy it,
Take it
go.
or kick rocks,
Yeah.
basically. We're booted up.
Yeah.
I mean, could you have theoretically bought empty boxes or duds and had no recourse for the cash you had spent?
I don't know. Possibly.
That was a risk.
Yeah.
It sounds like that was a real risk, right? Yeah.
So where did you set them up when you got them?
So with some of these batches, we did sell them to other people as well. But we initially set them up inside of garages and houses and things like that. And then the operation grew a little bit more to where a lot of these miners got moved to a warehouse space, using the power there. And there was a landlord that was interested in getting rent in Bitcoin. So a lot of these ASICs were moved there to basically do that. But then again, it was a headache because it's an actively managed thing. Like these miners, they shut down. You don't know if they're always hashing. So you kind of had to be the boots on the ground to service them and work them. So the warehouse thing maybe lasted for a little while, and then it was like, all right, we've made back our money on this investment plus some, just by mining Bitcoin, so, but yeah, I still do have a few miners kind of doing the Lord's work still.
Are they like ASICs
actively,
or are they like
they're
ASICs?
Yeah.
Okay, ASICs.
Yeah.
Are they here in America or do you have them somewhere around the world?
They're here in America. Yeah.
And are you basically, when you say doing the Lord's work, do you mean like if some of these huge miners were to come off of the network in some kind of catastrophic event, you would serve as a backstop and say, look, well, I'm still mining Bitcoin, and you could keep the network rolling. I mean, you're not necessarily trying to actually
make a lot
solve
of
a block
Yeah.
and get some Bitcoin. You're just kind of adding your hash rate to help strengthen the network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Me and my little BitX too. Holler.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I don't even know how much power it has.
They have like between 3 and 4, I think, terahash, depending on which BitX you get.
Yeah, I mean, my BitX, I guess I'd have to look at it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's very much at all, but it's there, and I'm helping to support the network as well. When did you stop mining Like, when did you stop the big old operation?
I want to say 2020, like right before COVID.
So basically like a decade of mining from your NC State laptop to
I'm good.
shutting down the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
I will say, I did sell some of that initial early Bitcoin that I had to like build some of the mining operations. Because you could use websites back then with Bitcoin. There was one called purse.io, it's called. And you could basically put your Bitcoin up there and they would go and buy everything in your Amazon cart at like a 10 to 30% discount.
Whoa.
So you could essentially like buy all your mining stuff for a lot cheaper if you used Bitcoin. And so I think kind of what they did was like, you put your Bitcoin up there and they did something with Amazon gift cards or something to these people and they would put in the orders for you. Maybe some people had like a stash of gift cards and they were trying to offload them and they wanted Bitcoin. Maybe that's how the exchange worked, but there's lots of different sites like that. So yeah, I don't know. You kind of have regrets along the way about selling and, doing different things. But I think Bitcoin mining, however far down that hole you go, is sometimes part of the journey of being a Bitcoiner. Just because you're curious and you want to understand, and you're like, how do I do this?
So what's your life like now that you've got Bitcoin? You spent some time with your grandma, then you spent time mining Bitcoin. Now you got Bitcoin. What is your life like for the Satillionaire who wants to know what it actually means to make it over the mountain and down the other side? What's your life like today?
I guess it just, you kind of have that sense of being ungovernable, like with that sort of mindset of like, all right, I see, with the economy these days, like all the money being printed and things like that, you kind of see it as a little bit more of an investment vehicle sometimes. Back then, I didn't really see it as much as an investment vehicle. I didn't really understand like, oh, once we go to 100K, we're going to 1 million. Kind of like how Finney was talking to Satoshi on the early forums, like it's a $10 million asset. Once you reach that $133 trillion market cap or something like that. So, yeah, for me, it's like theta redas, like I am just gonna like hold, carry on, and I have a positive outlook and mindset for what this Bitcoin is going to do for the next decade or two, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think also the fact that the supply is becoming much more scarce because there's so many lost coins, so many burned wallets, things like that. Your actual supply might not be 21 million, even though there's 21 million issued. It's probably closer to maybe 15 to 16 million Bitcoin. So that makes it even more scarce, which makes it even more desirable in my regard.
Yeah. God, losing 5 million over 16 years through different outlets is insane.
Yeah.
So I feel like we covered a lot of ground here today, Spencer, but that there's so much more to your story, especially if we get down and unpack each element, right?
Yeah.
And we're never going to fit it all into a single chat about sats. So we do ask each of our guests if they'd be willing to come back on in 9 months to give us an update on their Bitcoin baby. Would you be willing to do that for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I'm looking forward to round 2 with Spencer.
Yeah.
So we're going to make you an offer here, but before we do, let's recap and have a little snack. So we had number 74, Spencer, in the studio here today. Spencer has got some Icelandic heritage, which we love. His grandma was absolutely surfing the web of the 90s and the 2000s like an absolute cutlass pirate. I just love the fact, my grandmas were not like that at all. So I love this. I love your grandma. She introduced you to technology and, peer-to-peer file sharing through Napster, the Pirate Bay, BitTorrent, all that kind of stuff, right? And fueled your interest in that world so that when you went to NC State for university, you were studying computer science. But you didn't hear about Bitcoin first in a computer science way. You actually heard it in a political science way, where you were able to see that Wikipedia was able to continue operating.
WikiLeaks.
Wikipedia is operating by doing the don't scroll past this.
Yes.
If each of you just donate $3, we'll be okay. I'm like, no, I scroll past it. Like, I'm just totally heartless. WikiLeaks was basically kicked out of the financial system, but was able to continue operating because people were donating Bitcoin to WikiLeaks. And I remember there's like a post from Satoshi. I guess it's on that Bitcoin Talk or somewhere else where he's like, guys, let's not expose Bitcoin in this way. Like, this is not going to be good for Bitcoin. Maybe because the government, the attention of a nation state that early on in Bitcoin's history, I don't think Satoshi was ready for that.
Yeah.
But that was your first exposure to Bitcoin, and being technologically inclined, you went to try to figure things out. And that led to you putting, probably Bitcoin Core on your MacBook Pro and mining with it, right? I mean,
yeah, there was a mining software
okay.
of some sort. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but yeah.
But your professor was like, well, if A squared plus B squared, totally drowning out the lecture with your MacBook. That was like redlining and like trying to do as many calculations as they could. You were part of like that 2600 kind of hacker style meetup here in Raleigh. That's where you could learn how to, maybe
transact
with Bitcoin. Yeah. I guess selling people your Bitcoin in exchange for cash to kind of top up your meal card and kind of get some pocket money for yourself while you're at university. And it looks like over time, you kind of became more sophisticated in the mining world as you started a career. You and I worked together at Atlantic BT, and you were kind of writing code at that time. I think you were a PHP guy.
Front end dev.
Definitely not a .NET guy.
No.
Okay, you were front end. Okay.
Yeah.
So while you were working a career, you were also getting more and more sophisticated with mining, which included taking 5 figures worth of cash down to Miami to buy some ASICs that were, secondhand from Bitmain over there in China. And then you're setting that up here in the Raleigh area. It basically sounded like a second job, a second full-time job to maintain it, reboot them, maintain them, all that stuff. Not to mention, it sounds like for a decade, you just had hot, noisy living spaces.
Yeah.
Basically, wherever you lived was just hot and noisy. Yeah. So you mined for about a decade, and now you are just living your life and loving it, basically, right? Yeah. And I'd love to get into more detail on that on the next show as well. So we're going to offer you your choice here. But before we do, we want to make sure that we're not doing it on an empty belly. So we're going to try, what do we have here, Chris?
Jalapeno lime. So, all right. We've got our founding sponsor who has provided some jalapeno lime hummus for all of us to try, except I can't try today because I've got a blood test later. So I'm fasting.
Okay.
But please take a woven wheat cracker.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dip it in there and crunch into the microphone with Stuart and let us know what you think there.
All right. Well, I'm going to serve as Chris's taste buds for the first time. Here we go. Cheers, brother.
Oh, yeah. There's the heat.
Yeah. Even though I'm not eating it, I can.
Jalapeno.
Yeah.
Red pepper. Some cilantro and garlic.
A little lime juice. You like hummus?
I do.
Yeah.
Have you ever had Ithaca?
I've never had Ithaca.
Yeah. What do you think about this hummus?
Well, usually that grocery store hummus that you buy, it's like got this bed of water on the top. It's like I got to stir it up and do all that. Didn't seem to have that issue here, but I don't know if you pre-blended it.
I did pre-stir it. I did pre-stir it a little bit, but
how does it feel? Creamier, tastier, fresher? Like
flavor profile is definitely way more dynamic.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's been a little while since we've had jalapeno lime on the show. We went through like a 20 episode tear where everybody just wanted jalapeno lime.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't had it in a while. It's so good.
So good. All right. So we believe in value for value here on Sat Chats. And so as a small token of our appreciation for your time today, we're going to offer you your choice of $50, which we've got right here encased in this acrylic little magnetic doohickey here. Okay. Hopefully we don't have to take that out.
Which doesn't come with it.
Doesn't come with it.
I know it looks cool, but it isn't.
Or $50 in Bitcoin. We've got the Clark Moody Bitcoin dashboard pulled up here. Sats per dollar right now are at 973.
937.
Sorry, 937. So I'm gonna go 937 times. This is so easy. Clark Moody
Chris is
makes
in his
it
happy.
so easy.
Chris is in his happy.
All right, we got 46,850 sats or $50.
My wife is probably going to hate me for this, but I'm going to go with the sats.
Let's go. High five.
That's better than us. That's better than us hating you. For
Dude, and if your wife sends you to the couch tonight, we'll be your support crew. Dude.
Yeah,
We'll tell you, be like, dude, Spencer, you made the right choice, dude. You got this, dude. Just find a show you like tonight. It'll be fine. You know what I mean? So we love that. 46,850 sats for my boy Spencer. He's going to come back on in 9 months. We're going to be unpacking even more about his Bitcoin story because he sent me a rough outline of some of the stuff he's done. And I was like, dude, we need absolutely all of this on the show. And we've barely scratched the surface with this guy. So you bring our scoreboard to 68 guests who have stacked the sats, along with 6 who need a little bit more time. Mm-hmm. This is the part of the show where we ask you for your value in exchange for ours. What do we value here on this show? YouTube subscriptions. Smash the subscribe button the same way Chris Smash buys Bitcoin. Not only will your YouTube feed be flush with good, clean, high-quality content from us, okay, in and among all the brain rot that you can't resist, but also you'll be entered to win 10 million sats. Not 46,850, 10 million, okay? That's a whole lot more than what Spencer just stacked. But Spencer was glad to stack 46K. How happy are you going to be when you get 10% of a Bitcoin?
Yes.
0.1 Bitcoin.
It's huge.
You can also sign up to come on the show, satchats.com. We always need people to come on, whether they know about Bitcoin or don't, because you're perfect either way. Mm-hmm. Also, if you've been steadily making the right choice since 2010 and your wife still doesn't get it, send her to us. We'll bring her on the show and we'll do your work for you. Okay? We're energized. We're ready. So remember, Sat Chats is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice. Also, our guests' views are their own. See you tomorrow.